I should be bullheading then.
You're unmuted.
Thank you.
We're bear hunting instead.
Anytime I want to shoot them, there's no orchard everywhere.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is July 23rd, 2024. We're in the Frank Walder House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham. Here. Janot.
Here.
Markey is excused. Nye. Here. Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer.
Here.
Worsakki.
Here.
Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. I would ask for your guidance with the decisions we make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your Son, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you all for being here this morning. Any changes, additions to the agenda?
Not, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion by Gary, supported by Evan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So move. Approval of the minutes and or correction of the July 9th, 2024.
Do not moves.
9 seconds.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So move. The meeting on July 17th, 2024.
To accept Cunningham.
Second. Motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. Closed session on July 17th.
Do not moves to accept.
You want to look at them?
You know what they say.
Sorry.
You don't get one now?
Art is that good.
Yep, just like I said.
Well, second Commissioner Janot.
There is a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Roll call.
I thought you might want one.
Okay. Janot.
Yes.
Nye.
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes,
Sauer.
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank you. Brings us to our first public input. Is there anybody that would like to share this morning? Judge Mead?
Getting all the township, city and the villages, I've never addressed the county board. Out a campaign before. Figure now's the time so that some of you know what this job actually is.
Thank you, sir.
I am your current elected probate court judge. I'm a lifelong resident of Benzie County. I have a degree in a Bachelor of Science from Grand Valley State University in Criminal Justice, a Master of Public Administration from CMU. I graduated cum laude and in the top 10% of my law school class at Cooley Law School. And I have a Master of Laws in Agricultural Law from the University of Arkansas that was paid in full by the USDA. I began my public service career in 1991 with the Benzie County Sheriff's Office, and I left employment with the Sheriff's Office as your undersheriff on December 31st, 2000. In 2003, well, I began working for the court system in 2001. In 2003, Judge Botzer appointed me Family Division Referee for the 19th Circuit Court in Benzie and Manistee counties. I still do a lot of those duties now as a sitting judge. He then subsequently appointed me magistrate for the 85th District Court in Benzie and Manistee. When I became the probate judge on January 1st, 2013, that job included more duties than pretty much any other judgeship in the state. I handle all the probate court duties in Benzie County, which are guardianships, conservatorships, trust, civil actions, decedent estates, and mental health matters. And from January 1st, 2018 to March 1st, 2024, 1,148 cases have come across my desk. District Court, I handle criminal, small claims, general civil, landlord, and zoning matters. Criminal cases for that same time frame, 2,560 cases came across my desk. 2,743 civil cases came across my desk. In family division is circuit court. I deal with divorces with minor children, child support, child custody, neglect and abuse, adoptions, and personal protection orders. I am now handling a substantial caseload in Manistee County in probate and district courts, because the new judge down there, his stepfather, is one of the longest, well, he's one of the few retained attorneys left in Manistee. When I was chief judge in 2015, I made substantial budget cuts to both counties. The numbers for combined were between 150,000, 200,000. Benzie County specifically can point to approximately $50,000. Frank Walderhouse said I was either a genius or an idiot because no elected official voluntarily gives up money. But I understand Headley. I've been dealing with it since undersheriff. That's how I was trying to deal with Headley. I'm the second most senior judge in Benzie, Manistee, Leelanau, Grand Traverse, Wexford, Lake, and Mason counties. In this case, ladies and gentlemen, experience matters. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Your Honor. Any other public input? Close public input. Move on to elected officials, department heads. Rebecca.
Morning, Rebecca Hubers, Office of Emergency Management. I just wanted to throw out a couple of things that my office is helping to support. There's flyers in the back of the room. One is dated August 14th. It's at 6 p.m. in this room. It is Harm Reduction Michigan is coming to give a public presentation and training. It's mostly towards my CERT team, but it is open to the public regarding overdoses, naloxone, and things that the public can know if they want to be familiar with that type of situation. And then on August 21st, that's the next Wednesday after that at 6 p.m. My office is working with multiple Benzie County and state offices to put on a public awareness presentation that has to do with frauds and scams. Again, the flyers in the back. Presentations will be from the Benzie County Sheriff's Office, the County Register of Deeds, Michigan State Police, the Benzie County Prosecutor, Benzie Senior Resources will have someone there, and the Michigan Adult Protective Services. And that just has to do with the increasing number of, the register gave an example of property scams, but we have a lot going through our central dispatch and sheriff's office of people that are losing amounts of money. And these are just ways to protect yourself. But if you are also a caregiver or know people who are vulnerable, then this is a way to educate yourself, to educate people who couldn't just be here as well. So that's all I had. Oh, groundbreaking last week for the emergency communications tower in Frankfurt. I'm told by the building engineer, the guy who's actually building the tower, that he expects a solid structure there within 3 months, as long as everything is going. And then after that, it'll be a lot of tech. We have lots of tech that goes into that building. So I'm sure you'll see progress, or I'll try to give progress reports as it goes forward. And I'm meeting with a Motorola company every 2 weeks now.
Very good, thank you.
Just one question before you run off. Do we have fiber to it now?
Yes.
Did Jerry get that? Excellent.
It's somewhere under the ground somewhere in.
Yeah, in
in
that
line.
general
Rebecca,
vicinity.
did you say that tower would be complete in 3 months?
No, the build itself, just the solid structure, he plans to have erected in 3 months, but then I have a lot of tech. My start date that I was given at the beginning of the project is January 2025 to go live, and I'll keep you updated.
Okay.
In our groundbreaking ceremonies, we had lots of folks there, including representatives from Lake Township and City of Frankfurt. The representatives and our senator was there too.
Thank you. Douglas?
Good morning, Douglas Duran with Benzie Senior Resources. Just a couple updates. 6 new electric totes were purchased already from the grant awarded from the Ozone Foundation, and next month we'll purchase the remaining 6. They're nice looking clean totes and working beautifully. We do have 3 pending grants awaiting on for approval. 2 of them are for nutrition program funding, and then the other one is for updating our existing database to be more concise with the new state reporting requirements. For 2025, we are looking to purchase another delivery vehicle, which will be grant funded as well. Other than any questions for me, big push for the Blueberry Dash, August 3rd, Saturday at Bellows Park.
Good beer.
Thank you.
Thanks always, Doug. Any other department heads, elected officials? Move on to finance.
Good morning, Kelly Long, County Treasurer. Let's see, last 2 weeks, July 4th of 2024 through July 18th of 2024, we have spent $586,056.59.
I'll make the motion to pay the bills.
I seconds.
Waiting for Evan, but he might be.
Sorry.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Move on to consent calendar approval. Item A, consider approving the building closure policy.
Okay,
I'll do a motion to accept the consent calendar with the 2 items.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. Consider approving building closure policy.
just
Okay,
did that by adopting the consent.
There's just 2 of them, right?
2 policies that have been reviewed by staff and legal.
vote on it. Okay,
So, Gabe, and then-
so move on down.
Yes, mostly just a review.
All right, move on to new business. Consider extending an annual maintenance agreement for heating, cooling, generator backup in the sheriff's office.
Within your packet is a recommendation from the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee to move forward with extending an agreement with Hearst Mechanical for annual maintenance for the next 3 years up in the sheriff's office. We had quite a bit of conversation regarding this because one, Hearst Mechanical is not the low bid. And I know that many times we like to go with the low bid, but in this situation, Hearst Mechanical was the most reasonable or most logical vendor to work with. Because one, they've actually built our system, and so they are proprietary in that sense. They also have 24-hour service to us and they can do it, they can monitor it remotely. So if there's an issue in the middle of the night, they can remotely diagnose and then go from there. So in the long run, it does make more sense. Like I said, the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee has approved this to come forward. We also talked about trying to get this building and the sheriff's office on the same rhythm of maintenance agreement. We have 2 maintenance agreements for the campus and they're kind of on a different rhythm. And so as the one for the government center comes to a close, we'll talk to Hearst about just putting it into one maintenance agreement. So we have one maintenance agreement for the campus versus multiple.
So, is the jail completely separate with their heating and cooling?
Yeah, so they're 2 different systems, both by Hearst, built by Hearst, managed by Hearst. Yes.
I just wanted to verify for the public, it's not just for the sheriff's office, it's for his department.
Yes, sorry, it's for the entire building. So that would include
Thank you.
emergency management and the central dispatch as well.
Very good.
And does this cover not only equipment, but workmanship?
Yeah, so, and it's maintenance though. So anything outside of that routine maintenance and upkeep, we have to pay for separately based on, the time and the
Okay, that
equipment that
was-
may be needed. This is specifically for that annual ongoing maintenance to keep the system up.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners accepts the proposal from Hearst Mechanical dated March 25th, 2024 for ongoing maintenance of the HVAC system in the jail building for a period of 3 years in the not to exceed amount of $6,440 annually with funds available in the jail and general funds.
Support.
There's a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Gary?
Just one question, because you said, because Hearst installed it, is there a proprietary with the equipment?
Yes. We talked about that as well, because that is it can be frustrating,
Extremely
because we've tied ourselves to a vendor specifically. And Rick Morris brought up a good point that in the past, we tried to go with another vendor, with this system and it ended up costing the county more money in the long run because they wanted to change a lot of the mechanicals of the system for their proprietary. So it sounds like a lot of these agencies and vendors kind of have proprietary on their systems.
Sure.
And so when we tried to switch before, it ended up costing the county more money in the long run.
For my clarification, what do you mean by,
They're the only
Proprietary.
ones that can work on it.
It's their
Their
system that they
equipment
built.
and stuff that they build.
Their switches, their meters, their controllers, compared to Joe Blow might have the B model and they have the A model.
But I thought we were trying to get stuff set up to where anybody could work on this stuff. So when we took a bid, we would have more reasonable opportunity and actually maybe even in-house working on stuff. Don't like this, but it is what we're stuck with now.
But what I'm hearing Katie saying is it is common practice for companies to really monopolize, if you will.
Yes.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
but what we're voting on here is the maintenance agreement.
Correct. For the system that's already in place.
And when you talked about, you wanted to know if like parts were inclusive. So does that mean like filters and oil, et cetera, that's all included in the annual maintenance?
Yeah, so what would be traditionally included as maintenance? So filter type things, anything outside of that, if there's some sort of glitch or error, or that's most likely
Starter's
extra.
not working.
Correct.
Okay.
So anything that would be considered maintenance, they come, they do the checks, they run like diagnostics and just make sure things are running up to snuff.
There's no more discussion. Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
No,
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
do not,
Yes,
motion carried.
Item B. Consider approving an agreement for electronic monitoring.
This is exactly as it sounds, electronic monitoring, typically a tether system for the inmates who are within the jail that would be released on, say, work release specifically. So this agreement is on behalf of the Sheriff's Office with House Arrest Services, Inc. This is adding some structure to the current relationship that we have with them. Ultimately, the tether system is billed to the individual who has the tether on them. It's not something that's coming out of our pocket, but we provide that structure to the relationship for that relationship to go forward on that end.
So we already have this available to us. We're just documenting the relationship. Is that
That's
it?
my understanding is we've been doing this, but this is adding more structure to the relationship.
Okay, and clearly the sheriff is recommending it, so. Okay. Jeanette moves that the Board of Commissioners approves an agreement with House Arrest Services for electronic monitoring programming as prepared by legal counsel and authorizes the chair to sign.
Second.
Only question I had, the date parameters in the contract, is that correct?
Actually, we worked with the vendor.
24th to September
Yes.
23rd of 24.
Yes, so if you read further on, so in the vendor too, we talked with the vendor on this. Because of the standard rhythm we have with this agency already, there is a 3-year. So that getting us to September 24th is the close of that 3-year. And then if you read further in, it has the automatic renewals. So
Okay.
that's why it looks a little funny, like it's a 3-month,
Mhm.
but that's getting us to that new term.
Okay. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Consider approving a change order for Point Betsy.
Chuck Clark is here to go over this change order with you.
Morning, Mr. Clark.
Morning. Glad I got here early. This says a change order for the engineers, more engineer work based on the original plan, or at least the most recent version pulled back. The Eagle it expired on May 17th. And then a resubmittal of a new plan based on their request to have some changes. So we decided to withdraw the application to buy us some time. Based on my impression, one of the engineers went over the permit process. It would be better off going to bat again and seeing if we can make any headway than going through a mediation process at this time. We have 4 months with this instead of a year. I didn't want to extend it, frankly, my role in the committee for much longer than that. And if that doesn't work, we'll go into a mediation and an administrative law judge. What Eagle wanted was really 4 things. They wanted the north end smoothed over. They had told us that in 2022. And engineers didn't think that was such a great idea, but we did pull it back about 25 feet. Round off that corner by the fog signal building. They wanted the splash pad, which is north of the apron, to consist of some vegetation and more sand. We thought this wasn't a great idea because I always say the lake giveth and the lake taketh away. And you have vegetation in there now, and then it's gone as soon as the waves come through and splash. But whatever they want, that seemed okay. We'll have at it. Then things really changed with Eagle. I'm not sure how much Ed and I covered in April. I showed you any. I wish I put up some slides for you, and I don't remember if he did that or not, or provided that. They decided that they wanted to stick their guns to what they call Article 15, and which you can't have anything extending into the lake more than 15 feet. Well, the groins now, the perpendicular metal objects, 7 of them extending west into Lake Michigan, go over 30 feet, but they didn't think that really mattered. So we're talking about revetment, and for the most part. So in order to get the right revetment, and frankly, revetment rock is going to save this thing. It's not going to be cement. It's not going to be metal. So that was reinforced, the revetment to last and support that side of the lighthouse. So engineers had to do a number of things. They had to take away 10 feet of the apron, take away one of the two walls and move it further east toward the lighthouse. So that's done, and that's in the diagram. I also raised the apron a little bit. And we still have safety considerations in there, so you can't walk and fall into the rock and water. But the 15 feet is not exactly going to be correct based on the contours of the edge. It ranges from 15 to 23 feet. And most of this is underwater, or a lot of it is the bottom support rock. So that was put together and resubmitted to Eagle in a new application in late May. And well, I guess it's June, but they have that now. We've gone through we're starting the public input process. Briefed Lake Township last first part of the month, and they support the plan. I also put in what you guys, what Ed and you guys prepared about not recommending any movement of the lighthouse to another location. And they put that in their letter. So that process is ongoing with public input, even though Eagle hasn't even asked for that yet. As of yesterday, Eagle has asked for some minor modifications to that design, or at least clarifications, and the engineer's working on that. So that process is ongoing. And of course, when the plan stops, the engineer has to start a new project, and that's why he's asking for money. This request is really 4 parts. The design update, is time doing that, and then future issues. If the plan changes, then SHPO, which frankly wanted certain things included in this design. One is a replica of the apron, or depiction of the apron, at least that apron to be visible. The 2 walls. And now one wall is taken out and the apron is less in width. And I'm a little prejudiced here, by the way. And so they've changed their leadership, and they are not as strong as advocates as they used to be under Brian Conway, but they're just getting their feet under guard. The new leadership is. So anyway, SHPO will need to provide what's called a Section 106 report to the Corps of Engineers. And this change order requires them to, or allows them to review that and then get that in. If necessary, we're delaying that based on what Eagle comes up with. And then any further design updates, you put 19,100 in there. And I'm not sure that that'll even happen very much. So a total is $44,800. So request approval of that. I think the next steps are for the dialogue with Eagle. And realize that panel that they have is 3 layers of leadership out of Eagle. The field guy, the Cadillac people, and then the region people. So we'll see where we can get in there. Some of us, like Art has been involved in talking to John Roth. He's ready to step in when necessary. So that's where we are on that. So request approval of that. We've got a meeting this week, and we'll continue working with Eagle. We've been at this for about 4.5 years.
In a while.
Yep.
Talking about the one component where they're requiring vegetation on the splash pad.
Yes.
And you say the waves giveth and the waves taketh away.
Yes.
If the waves taketh that away, are you in violation of the permit? And
No,
have
we
to
just have to,
reestablish it
we have to reestablish it.
every time the waves take
No,
away
just like annually.
annually?
We'll see where that goes. At least monitor it. And you also realize on vegetation, not so much for that area, but the Coast Guard property abuts the lighthouse property, the county property on lot 12. And we're restoring some of that sand in there that was also eroded. And when we talk to the Coast Guard, they want to say in what goes in there as far as vegetation, or we just want approval of that. So you have a number of agencies weighing in on that.
Any other question?
I'm assuming then this is just added cost
Yes,
to the project.
yes. And what is this change order? 6.
I just would note for the record that these folks have been at this for quite a while. They're all volunteers. I really appreciate the fact, Chuck, that you and others stayed on through this whole process. I think that continuity of the experience helped. And that with some exception, the Friends have raised their own money to do all of this. So even though, and this is more for the public, even though you come to us for approvals, these are monies that you're raising yourself. With, again, I know we've helped with grants and I think we helped with some ARPA funds, but by far, 98% of the money is coming from your efforts. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make the motion. Or did you want
I have one more question. Are you gonna realize any return of funds from your recent theft?
The only thing is when the application was withdrawn, Eagle returned part of the permit application, which Katie got, and put it in your fund for the lighthouse.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
No.
about the gentleman that recently got sentenced for stealing from Point Betsy.
Oh. I've only heard a little bit about that since I'm not actively involved.
Okay.
There was restitution granted, and so there would be money coming back, yes.
and there was sentencing already.
Correct.
That was operating funds probably, not
For the project.
what
wasn't
I
the
would call
capital
capital
funds.
funds.
All right. I just wondered if you knew anything about it or could share anything.
Not a whole lot, but I'm not surprised.
All right. Art, you wanted to make that motion?
Sure, moving that the Board of Commissioners approves change orders number 6 to the Point Betsy Shoreline Project agreement with Bar Engineering in the amount of $44,800, and that the board chair be authorized to sign.
Support Cunningham.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks.
We do have a 9:30 presentation. I'd like to welcome.
Good morning. I'm Brooke Pop, the FKS Airport Manager. I have with me here today Ken Lawrence. He is one of the county representatives on the board, and Dave Spriggins is the Crystal Lake Township Board Representative. I'm going to be brief. Everyone has a copy of my presentation. I just wanted to write down some facts for everybody or some different things. So I have been asked if the airport provides value, and I do believe it does. I talk about public values, refer to the benefits that are accessible to all members of the public. I also refer to, but values are also what people refer to what people hold dear beyond their self-interest. Value is created when benefits exceed costs. Values are also created, enjoyed over time, and can be increased or reduced by adding resources or by depleting them. I believe that the FAA and MDOT have found value in FKS. In the past fiscal year, they both have invested over $1.5 million to our airport. The authority was started in 1996. The input was very minimal. Today, operating revenues are not in keep with operating expenses. The Community Airport Authority Act states that the airport funding or budget shortfalls are funded by the member entities, which is the city, the county, and the township. And a budget shortfall is for all of the operating expenses not funded by the airport's operating revenues. So today I am here requesting a $15,000 contribution from Benzie County. This contribution is intended to fund various airport expenses. And I believe your contribution will add value and stability to the community with virtually no risk to the county. There was a community benefits assessment done by MDOT. That's on page 17 of the budget document. It depicts an annual ongoing contribution to the county's economy of almost $1.4 million. On the previous page is an economic impact model, which describes how the benefits go beyond the airport and into the community.
in my presentation, written, it talks about what economic impacts are. It's basically anytime money changes hand from consumer to business to business. And as MDOT has done, they use different metrics. They use employment, earnings, economic value, and economic output and value added. For the community, maximizing productivity means higher levels of economic growth and development. The airport is committed to increasing efficiencies and is confident the new improvements will increase airport revenues. Our goal is actual self-sufficiency. A few new efficiencies are, we have Plane Pass, which is capturing revenue and improving records management. We will be having rental cars available at the airport next spring. We're going to be increasing hangar rates to competitive levels. We're going to concentrate on competitively priced aviation fuel. I'd like to explore other services such as gliders, skydiving, and plane tours. Self-sufficiency does mean standing alone, but this will take time. Our next few years of grants will go towards the bond, our outstanding bond. If we do choose to construct additional hangars or have a jet fuel farm or other revenue producing project, that project's probably going to take at least 8 years. But moving forward, I'd like to focus on building a collaborative team with the authority and their members. I do have a page in here for articles of incorporation and the tax status. There have been questions on that, and I think this answers those questions. We are what the IRS considers a public charity. We receive at least 1/3 of our support from government units. We receive other support indirectly or directly from the general public. I also have a page on the hangars. We have a total of 25 hangars. 22 are for public use. We have 3 private hangars. They actually just lease the footprint. So our tenants, let's see here, we have 17 that reside in Benzie County, 4 from Grand Traverse, 2 from outside Michigan, 1 from Leelanau, and 1 from Manistee. Of those Benzie County tenants, about 1/3 reside in Benzonia Township. Another 1/3 reside in Crystal Lake Township. And the remainder is we have 1 from Lake Township, we have Joyfield, Inland, Elmira, City of Frankfurt. And the last page is the operations. So June of last year, we had about 294 operations. That is a takeoff and a landing. They each count as 1. And I would like to point out, traffic at FBS is very weather dependent. This year, we were down to 244. We do have quite a few flight school operations there at the airport. I've been talking with the pilots and our visitors. The main reason coming here, obviously, it's a beautiful area. It's incredible. They like to visit their family and friends here. They have cottages, cabins. Many of them love just to come in, grab a burger downtown, an ice cream cone, and then go back home, using our amenities such as fuel. I've had quite a few people visiting the lakeshore this year too. Golf courses, obviously, Crystal Mountain. Are there any questions?
Brooke, may I? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Brooke, thank you for doing this. There were a lot of questions here at the county, and this, I think, really gives us some clarity on it. My question on the 15,000, does that include service from us? In the past, we had.
Right. So in
Treasurer.
previous years, the county has contributed $12,000. The county also provides the airport with payroll services and bookkeeping services. Going forward, it can look differently if the board so chooses. I am proficient in bookkeeping and payroll. So if that's something that could come to the airport, that could very easily be done. We do need cash at the airport. We have aging infrastructure, we have repairs, we have maintenance to do. We're open to options.
All right, so that would be for us to decide, so it could 15. Gary,
It can be more too. I mean.
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
We have all sorts of projects that we'd like to do.
I'd also add that Brooke is her former.
I was the former township treasurer for Crystal Lake Township.
There you go.
Yep, I resigned to become airport
For
manager.
how many years?
11.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I've got 2 or 3 questions. for
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
You
please.
answered the one about the increase.
Mhm.
The other one is, what is your background qualifying you for this job? Just
Well, I'm
curious.
not a pilot. I do admit that, not a pilot. My education, I have a bachelor's of accounting. And I basically have always been in business since college. Owned, operated my own businesses. I was the township treasurer. So I see this as, so an airport authority is somewhat a business, somewhat a government. And I'm using the skills that I've learned from some of my nonprofits and what I learned at Crystal Lake Township to try to bring them all together and help the airport out.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had is, we have never had an agreement with Crystal Lake Township. Has that been remedied?
There is not a written agreement and like I'm not an attorney. I don't have a legal background. The Airport Authority Act does state, so membership is determined by resolution into the authority and resolution out of. A memorandum of understanding, it may be helpful in certain parameters. I'm not sure if it's entirely applicable. I think if the authority is supported by its members and it continues and flourishes, then I don't think there's no risk.
Because I'm extremely leery of anything that we don't have a written in agreement that continues to increase in cost. And we're on the hook for the 1.5 million. I know the city has an agreement.
So we,
Just saying, there's
Right, the
some things
airport-
that I would like cleared up,
yes,
and that is one of them. And I
as
hope
long
in
as
the
the
future
authority
we get it.
stands, we are responsible for our own debts. As long as the authority's there, we cover our own debt. If for some reason we do not have support and the authority fails, then that does go to the member entities. But as long as we can keep the authority together, we have no issue with that. As far as written, what we could do is a certification. Once we come to an agreement on a figure, I can provide a certification which kind of, it outlines that figure. According to the Airport Act, that figure can change annually. I kind of like to think farther down the road. For all of us, we like to budget years in advance. So for the time being, once a figure is agreed upon, we could come up with a document that I think that would satisfy your
Our
needs.
attorneys can very easily write some type of agreement that until we go too much farther, like that.
Okay.
I'm only one commissioner, but it's been a concern for me for a long time.
Mhm.
And without an agreement, that does not necessarily mean all entities are liable for what's going on.
I'm gonna add,
Thank you.
so, we have a memorandum of understanding with the city of Frankfurt, because we're the original 2 entities that created this authority. So the MOU we have is with the city of Frankfurt, and it does, call out what we do as part of our contribution, and it calls out Frankfurt's. Crystal Lake was added later under the rules of the authority by resolution. The MOU was never put back in never expanded to include Crystal Lake. So I'm hearing from you that you just want the responsibility spelled out is really what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So the MOU as it stands calls out our responsibilities of providing the payroll and bookkeeping services and such. So if that were to change, the MOU has to change, period, because we've already committed to those things. I don't see it as an issue to expand that MOU to add in Crystal Lake, because then it's committing Crystal Lake to what their contribution is as part of the authority. I don't see that as a huge issue, because all it would be is amending the MOU that's in place that was just between the city and the county when they created the authority specifically. My one question for you is this 15 in addition to the 12, or is this upping the 12 to 15?
No, this is 15 total,
Okay, cool.
15 annually.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I
I
don't
would-
know.
I'm sorry, I think Karen was next.
But-
I would agree with Gary that that's a move that we need to make. Do I remember something about two on the authority or on the board that I believe Karen represents us on.
Mhm.
Do you have?
Liaison.
As a liaison. Now, I believe there was conversation about you having an actual vote
Correct.
on matters. Is that still an issue or has that been resolved?
That is still an issue. So kind of the history of what happened is Benzie County Commissioners had a voting member on there for years. When Corey Carlin was a commissioner, there's where it lied. When Corey Carlin no longer was a commissioner, that was just basically absorbed as the county's representative. And then since then, you've appointed two citizen representatives and just a liaison from the board. But when Corey was on the commission, he served that commissioner role, which he's a voting member of that. Now that should be remedied according to our legal counsel. I see that being remedied through attrition unless the Board of Commissioners would like to remove one of their appointments mid-year. So that would be up to the board on how we would proceed with that, but that should be remedied. But that's where it got funny, is because Corey used to be a commissioner and then he came off the commission and he was left on the airport authority. When in the grand scheme of it, he should have been pulled off the airport authority and appointed to a different position so that the commissioner then could be that person. That's how it got muddy.
And does his term come up?
2026?
I think 2026, yes.
It's a difficult situation
I think
too,
that's
because
something we need. to
Corey has extensive historical knowledge.
Exactly. And I think that's why it was done the way it was done, honestly. I think that's why it played out that way, because it just made sense. But according to our legal counsel, this Board of Commissioners should have representation as a voting member unless you bestow that representation onto somebody else,
Well, we have two
which you
other votes.
essentially have.
We have two other appointees, right? In addition to Corey?
No, one. So
What-
Corey is serving as that other one.
And when do they when does that one expire?
Let me look up.
2027?
Do you have it? Otherwise I gotta look it up.
I think it's
I
2027.
think it's 2027 as well.
Do you want to say something else?
I didn't know if the memorandums of understanding reflected the composition of the voting body. Is that anything that can be altered or addressed for a future understanding?
I don't remember because I haven't looked at it in a while, so I'd have to look up
I
what
don't
it says.
think it
Yeah.
does. I think basically what it states is if, so let's say the county would like a board member, that's something done at this member level. And the other members can choose to do that or not do that. The airport authority doesn't have any requirements for that. That's done in-house. Does that make sense?
But Frankfurt has a voting member from their trustees.
They do.
And how about Crystal Lake Township?
They do not at this point.
Uh,
Right.
And what elevated this was that we learned that our liaison was being excluded from the discussions regarding litigation,
Mhm.
of which was never brought to this board to be made aware of those litigations. So it kind of spiraled.
Right. Right. I
We-
understand.
We need to have, and by the way, I might point out, the liaison could have been in that room. All you had to say when you made a motion to move into it is to say, and including the Benzie County Commissioner.
That's correct.
And that is problematic when we are in the chain of fiduciary responsibility.
Our attorney at the time, the airport attorney, asked, we should have clarified that. I don't think we knew. We were advised by our airport attorney just to have authority board members present.
Not very healthy relationship to first not notify us that there was litigation pending since when? Like 2017?
Right.
And secondly, not to at least have ears in that meeting so that they could report back.
Mhm.
Those are major shortcomings.
So am I hearing from this body that we need to expand the MOU and update it essentially? Because right now it's just between the city and the county and we really should add in Crystal Lake because it is a three-way relationship at this point. And then would you like this as a topic, as discussion as to how to proceed with the membership? Or what would you like me to schedule? Because at this point, our two voting members representing Benzie County are Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Carland.
Well, there's another solution, is that the board acknowledges that even if the liaison doesn't have a vote, they're sitting in all discussions related to an entity that we're 1/3 owner in. And I heard what you said, Brooke, that the authority's taking on the responsibility. Actually, MDOT is the one that's gonna make sure that the litigation is made whole. But we need to have a voice and ears in those meetings. And you can rectify that. If you go to your attorney, and if your attorney can't figure it out, let me bring someone in that can.
Right.
All right, but
Pardon?
Still Carrie?
No, Carrie's with, Harbor
Oh,
City.
Harbor City.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a good point. It's a stopgap measure, but I think through attrition, it should be noted that this needs to be rectified
Mhm.
and a standing board member should serve a voting.
And I
in
have
a
that
voting
note.
Position and,
Yeah.
but to acknowledge that in this case, Karen would be included in all meetings and conversations until that time in writing. That might be a good move to make and worthy of conversation.
Yeah, and I have that note too, to try to address that through attrition, because I, based on my conversations with you individually, we weren't inclined to pull people off boards. So I do have those notes, and then I will work with Brooke to expand the MOU so that it's a little more inclusive of all three members and what they're responsible for. We'll try to stray away from the dollar amount per se, so that it can be determined annually. If we're not going to do payroll services, then maybe the dollar amount is different and so forth. So we can work through that.
Okay.
the,
Yeah.
the challenge we have with appointment is that as critical as any component, is you've got to have people on the board that understand the business.
Yes.
Right.
And we were fortunate with Corey. I don't know if he self-educated during the process or if he was already there and was the right appointee.
Mhm.
So just removing somebody for the sake of having a vote from this board,
Right.
I'm going to talk about that when the time's appropriate too.
Mhm.
Because you got to have people that have industry knowledge. It's not going to be an easy thing to deal with. And quite frankly, I could be satisfied just knowing that we always have someone from the commissioner
Yes, yeah.
sitting in all discussions, special meetings, closed sessions, et cetera.
We can do that. I can remedy that. Thank you for that input. Definitely.
I agree with we need it in writing.
Okay.
Sorry, but
Okay.
that's how I operate on things. So thank you.
I will send it to Cole Stoker and our existing MOU, and I'll just indicate, hey, we want to expand this to include the additional member. And then Brooke and I can work on going back and forth on that, and then it would come before this board.
Katie, the only caution I want to put out there is 2 or 3 of us have spoken to this.
Mhm.
So make sure you got the directive from the full board or the majority of the board. I know, I appreciate your willingness to move these things forward, but it's really a board decision.
Seeing the heads nods from a majority of you, I know where to go.
Okay.
So they've both been nodding their heads in addition to the 4 of you spoke. So
Are you making the same request to Frankfurt about the 15,000?
Yes.
So you're asking for an additional 3,000 going forward until another request comes up?
Correct.
And you're saying that you're working towards self-sustainability, but how much time do you guys need to get there?
Like I said, at least 8 years, any sort of project, costs keep going up every year. So even looking at a fuel farm, that's gonna take a few years worth of grants from MDOT. So every little step, we're getting there. And hopefully with some of the things that we're trying to do, like I said, we have an incredibly beautiful area. The airport could be used in our tourism toolbox. And I think we've been neglecting that. So to increase business, to increase awareness, some other things I think might help to get us there quicker.
So full disclosure, Brooke's request, I spent quite a bit of time with her on this. And I'll tell you what, you could raise the additional money just by pricing your hangar fees appropriately. And that can be done. Are those on a contract basis or are those
And we
month
are
to
looking
month?
at that, yes.
So you wouldn't have to come to us for it all.
Even if we increase hangar rents, we need more hangars, by the way, too. I have a backlog of folks on the waiting list, so, and that is another opportunity for us too.
You need more hangars, but you're running at a deficit. What, are we gonna just increase that deficit?
MDOT supplies the infrastructure, so we just reap the benefits of revenue.
Rick, I'm really not hammering on you. You just happen to be the one standing at the podium. But I'll repeat myself. How quickly could you increase those hangar fees?
It does take a couple of months. I have to have a public meeting,
Uh-huh.
so the public is aware.
So 90 days,
Yes,
and you could fill that gap in 90 days.
I'm not sure if I can fill the complete gap, but I will do my best.
Well, let me put it this way. It's supply and demand. I only have so many hangars out there. I got a lot of demand for them because you just told me we had to expand it. I can charge almost whatever I want.
Not necessarily. The FAA does have parameters on that respect too. I have to stay competitive.
Okay.
And are you competitive right now?
It depends. I mean, obviously, this area, we are somewhat unique along the lake shore. If you look downstate where there's a lot of hangars, yes, we are very competitive, but here it could be improved upon.
Anybody else?
Yeah, before we acted on a request, we should know what the opportunities are for additional revenue.
Additional revenue opportunities.
I mean, just by increasing the hangars.
Right. And the fuel, yep, keeping track of fuel. Yep. And we are.
To act on this today.
No,
No,
This
it's
I'm not,
education.
Yeah,
Right.
and I see this as part of the budgeting, because we've already approved the 12,000 for the
Correct.
fiscal year we're sitting in. Brooke is requesting for this fiscal year we're coming into, so this is part of your budgeting process, which we're gonna talk budgeting
she's
again this
written-
afternoon.
Question an additional $9,000.
No, an
It's
additional,
entire- No, from the entire entity.
333.
and when it comes
Yeah.
to things like payroll,
Already picked
that would be like a
15.
calendar year change, maybe instead of mid-year,
yeah.
for the ease of that sort
Clarification for Gary's question.
of.
You're not asking for an increase from Crystal Lake Township. are you?
They've been currently paying 15. So
But
I've
you're not
asked-
asking them to pay an additional 3.
I haven't,
So take everybody to 15.
correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's 6,000.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, bro.
So, item D, consider approving jail kitchen door repair.
Yep, jail kitchen door. All right, so the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee again met with the undersheriff to talk about the jail kitchen door. This door has been on the capital plan for us for a few years, actually, and we've kicked this can down the road. But we're really to a point now where that door does need absolute repair. And so the Buildings and Grounds Committee was presented with 2 proposals. We weren't able to obtain a third or a fourth, just 2. So we went over those 2 proposals, and as a consensus of the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, they're looking to move forward with Northwest Commercial Door. I will note that they, one, were the low bidder, and also this came in under of what we budgeted in the capital plan. So this was budgeted in the capital plan for $25,000. Northwest Commercial Door is able to repair that door for just over $13,000. So we are seeing a little bit of savings there from what we anticipated. But this door, we really are at a point where we need to repair that door in the kitchen area of the jail.
We have the funding for it and
Correct.
the committee's making the recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Was there any guarantee on this door once it's installed? For a year?
It's a repair, not necessarily a new door.
Not replacing the door? I thought the door was rusting out completely. They need to be replacing the door.
It's a complete replacement, door lock, all the accessories, everything. So with a little luck, it'll last 32 years like this one did.
I'm just
Is there any guaranteed?
Well,
Is that
most
what
of
you're
the
looking
time,
for?
most of the time you have at least a year.
Usually the
for
workmanship is like a
installation, yeah.
year, but,
Didn't see anything in there. I was just curious.
And it being an exterior door, you have to be very careful with salt,
yes.
because that's the biggest.
Right.
Um,
And the exterior doors are, of course, security rated. They're heavy. That's why they're so expensive.
Yes,
The
they are-
interior
they
doors
are-
are
they are
not
thicker.
that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I'll make the motion then. You got it. I don't have to read it, do I? That the Board of Commissioners approves the repair of the jail kitchen door C14 by Northwest Commercial Door and Frame LLC in the not to exceed amount of $13,548 with funds available in the capital fund.
Yeah, I'll second. I do have a question.
Good.
The Northwest I must be missing something because the Northwest Commercial says 8,110. But we're approving 13,500.
The west.
That includes the, yeah, it includes the lock mechanism and all the, wiring to make that
From
work.
Johnson or.
Johnson Controls, it's a total package.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, it's handwritten at the top.
Yeah, so the door itself is the 8,000
okay.
and some, and then the other elements of the
I'm good.
pieces. Yep.
All right, there's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Nye. Yes. Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item E, consider approving energy recovery wheel replacement in the jail.
This is another item that went before the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. They've been very busy lately, going over these things. This is the energy recovery wheel, which I'm not well versed in, but I'm sure the sheriff and the undersheriff can explain it a little better than I can. But this is specific to the heating and cooling up there. And the funding, it was not on the capital project because this is something we didn't anticipate failing as of now. But there is funding available within the jail fund when looking at the finances. So there is funding available for this project and it is in need.
This is a dire need actually, because it's a bearing situation. So getting ready to self-destruct, and it's a very important integral part of our system, which hopefully in the future with this maintenance contract, we'll be able to prevent some of these things, or at least know that they're coming before it's a oh crap moment. So we're at the oh crap part. At this point, it's that severely damaged. So that's why we're putting this ahead of other things on our list. Missing anything you want to share?
You're not, but I was asked at the meeting to explain what this energy recovery wheel did by Commissioner Nye, I think. So these energy recovery wheels, it's like a gear and it's metallic and it transfers energy between the fresh air and the exhaust. So it actually makes the whole system more efficient by 33%. If it calls for cold air and it's pulling in fresh air from the outside and it's cold, it transfers that energy directly, and the same with hot air. It's a wheel that actually absorbs that energy and places it where it's supposed to be. If you're making the building cool, it places that hot air outside. If it's making it warm, it takes that hot air from outside if it's warm enough and puts it inside. So it transfers that energy into the system.
Very smart wheel.
Yes. I think the only thing you didn't touch on is it's making a very high pitched noise, which is very disruptive to staff and our inmates.
It is, and that noise is indicative of you're gonna die sometime soon, so.
It's making it now.
It is squealing,
because-
right?
Because it's failing, yeah.
I was
So,
afraid that's the way it was.
I'm gonna make the motion that the Board of Commissioner approves the replacement of the energy recovery wheel by Hearst Mechanical in the not to exceed amount of $7,158 with funds available in the jail fund.
Seconds.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Item F, consider approving parking lot lighting at the government center.
Since I came to Benzie County, the lighting in the parking lot has been an apparent issue for staff, especially those who may be here on election night. The lighting that we have in our parking lot is a bit dim. And so there is an issue with the parking lot being too dark. So we, since last fall of 2023, have been trying to obtain proposals from folks in the region to redo the lighting, add to the lighting and so forth here in the campus, trying to address that darkness. We were unsuccessful in getting more than one vendor bid. We called various electricians. I also think that folks from the subcommittee, the Building and Ground Subcommittee, also reached out to vendors trying to get proposals, and we were unsuccessful in getting proposals outside of Blue Water Electric. Blue Water Electric has provided two proposals. One is to simply replace the tops of the existing poles that we have, and the other one would add additional lighting. In speaking with Mark Tunsil, the owner, he believes that we should do this in a phased approach to replace the tops first. And then if it's not light enough, we could add additional poles. The new tops to the poles have a larger cast. And so the idea is that this may alleviate the darkness issue because it's a larger light cast. The Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee talked about this at length, honestly, just because one, we were struggling with the one proposal. Two, we were struggling with what do we do? Do we just add lights? Do we change tops? What do we do? And so the ultimate recommendation was to move forward with replacing the tops for now and evaluate the situation. And if we need additional lights, cross that bridge. There is funding for this. This was part of our ARPA capital list. And so funding was set aside. To do just the tops is $9,200. And we had set aside more than double that for lighting of the parking lot. So the funding is there. It's on our list. The Buildings and Ground Subcommittee is recommending moving forward, and it would be to provide that the vendor Blue Water Electric replace the tops of the existing lights. And then we'll get feedback from the staff and decide what we will do going forward.
Is part of the issue, the project's not big enough for some of the firms in Traverse to do this.
I think there's a
Is it?
combination of issues. Maybe it's a small project. People are busy. I mean, people are very, very busy. Some of the proposals that the sheriff's office brought forward for just the two projects we talked about, we had to pay for proposals. And so we're just in this really weird time in our world that people are busy. You got to pay for proposals, and I mean, they can pick and choose what they want to do. If it doesn't seem like a project that's lucrative or, easy per se, they don't have to bid on it because they have enough other work to do. So we're in a really weird time in our world.
So the replacement of the lampshade, the tops, whatever you want to call it, those are available.
Correct.
Okay, so those are available. And they may, by the way they dress and cast the light down, you could keep the same luminosity and everything, but get greater lighted surface.
Yes, that's what Mark
Okay,
is
without
indicating.
losing it above.
Correct.
So more dark sky.
Yeah. So it meets the dark sky, that the local municipalities want to preserve. But the cast down is a wider
broader.
cast. And so the idea is that will light up the parking lot enough that maybe we don't need the additional poles. Because right now they're kind of casted a little bit smaller. It is a bit dark out there. I've been here when Tammy and her folks are here on election night. It is quite dark.
Okay.
And so this should cast a larger, that'll hopefully then increase the lighting.
I think it sounds like a good approach. I mean,
And then
If we change out the tops and that doesn't work, are they able to match the poles to what we have so everything looks uniform?
yeah, everything's pretty standard what we have here, and they still make that fairly standard. The new tops are a newer top.
Right.
And so,
I just meant the pole itself. If we
yeah.
had to add poles, they'll look like the ones. Okay.
yes, we can make them match essentially. We do have one odd one at the corner of the parking lot. It's got this big old globe. I don't know why that one's there and the rest are different. So eventually we'll have to make that decision of, do we keep the one single globe that's different than everything else, or do we get rid of it?
They should all just. look
It's
the same,
very,
so.
it's very like inner city street light globe. It's kind of fun.
I appreciate the measured approach and I want to acknowledge Blue Water Electric for hanging in there. This has been a long process for them.
Yeah.
And they did come at the end of the day and offer a solution that was a little bit, the phased approach, I think is a little bit more palatable than the big jump. We'll see how it works. So I'm gonna make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the quote dated 6/25/2024 from Blue Water Electric to update lighting in the government center parking lot in the not to exceed amount of $9,200 with funds available in the capital fund. And support.
Motion support. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do. Katie, I know that from time to time, consumers offers incentives for creating efficiencies. Have we explored that at all?
Yeah, so just before I came, you guys went through that process of doing changes to the different bulbs and whatnot to go down that process of incentives that way. I've also, DTE has a third-party vendor that they work with, and so does consumers. And we've had conversations with these third-party vendors who monitor, usage and wattage and fair market value of the wattage. And yes, we are doing everything we can to bring the cost down where it's feasible.
Okay, so we're exploring that now.
Yes, yeah, yes. We already did in a sense, but yes.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Janai,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Let's move on to committee appointments. We only have one. Recently there was a retirement for one of the Veterans Affairs Committee men. And it was posted, that opening was posted by the administration office. There was two gentlemen that applied. One of them is Vince Palazzolo. Vince had been attending the Veterans Affairs Committee meetings for the past 6, 7, 8 months. 9 months, as well as Gary Sauer, who has a family history of commitment to the United States of America in all of their activities as far as father, grandfather, great grandfather, and Gary himself. The committee choice was, and I am not a voting member on this, the committee appointment was for Vince, but we're here today to make that decision and appoint a replacement.
And I would make the motion that the Board of Commissioners appoints Vincent Palazzolo to an unexpired term on the Veterans Affairs Committee, term expiring December 31, 2025.
We got it? Oh, Evan? Thank you. Motion and support. Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
I have to recuse myself.
Thanks, Gary.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. And thank you, Gary, for your commitment.
I'll be back.
I know. There'll be more coming up soon.
If I could just add this, one of the things I like about the recommendation is it continues to get more people from the community involved. Gary, you're heavily involved already. So if for nothing else, the more people we can get engaged that have the skills to participate, you should always be encouraging that.
All right, it's 10:13. Let's take a short break.
Smack again.
You're unmuted.
Back in session. So we broke off at committee reports. And things that we have pretty much exhausted everything else that's on the agenda. I believe after committee reports, if there's no major issues, we'll be finished with the morning meeting, adjourn, and then take another short break for everybody to get their paperwork in order for the afternoon meeting, and we'll come back in within 20 to 30 minutes to, yep, if for whoever needs time to go get their afternoon stuff.
Will that allow people that have to make budget presentations?
To get their stuff as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So, as you can tell by some of the movements, especially buildings and grounds, I attended quite a few meetings in the past month, as well as the groundbreaking, for the new system in Frankfurt. We were asked to also be part of the 4th of July parade. I know that was in our last meeting, but that generated another call if we could put Benzie County Veterans Affairs in the Coho Festival. So they are having one. Miss Patty Gettings is spearheading that. So she called me yesterday and said, can the veterans have a? I said, yeah, I guess. So put it on your calendar. I think they meet by the honor school or up behind it,
Okay.
Black River School. So in that parking area. And it's August 24th at 1 o'clock.
That's the one.
All right. And we will move on to Commissioner Jeanette.
I'm going to just make two brief comments. One is regarding the ad hoc committee for the grant writer. This is for the benefit of the community. We are going to explore that. We came up with several questions that really need to be addressed before we can even move forward. And Katie, maybe at some point you'll speak to that directly. And then because we have not had the opportunity to say this before, I appreciate the ad hoc committee giving me a bigger role in both the contract negotiations and the review. And Katie, I want to tell you that I think you're doing an outstanding job. I think that we have great opportunities. If we can keep your energy level up and the motivations there, I think that this community has great opportunities with you helping us lead the way.
Thank you.
So did I hear you say you're volunteering daycare for the Zeitz family? So
Hey, you want my energy levels up? I got these
So
wild kids.
what I'm saying is we hired you under special, some certain conditions, and you got to abide by those conditions. And we look forward to you being successful for the county.
I can speak for Katie when she doesn't want Art watching, babysitting her kids.
Wow, what are you saying? That's it.
that's it. Sharon?
By a horse.
All right,
There you go.
I just have one addition on there. Woo Woo, our local radio station that is all about the community, is going to be doing a community potluck to raise funds. It's going to be $10 per adult. And then I have information that I can give you for the website. So people, if they're interested in supporting that nonprofit for our local radio station. Other than that, unless you have some questions, that is the thinnest report I've ever submitted.
Questions, Karen?
You didn't put much in there, did you?
Rhonda?
They were canceled.
Sure. Let's see. I attended the Village of Beulah meeting. The state of Michigan has agreed to an extension request for their non-source point grant to December 31st of 2025. They passed a resolution that was required for that non-source point grant to relocate or reinstall stormwater facilities and railroad right-of-ways. This was just required by the state in case they ever decide to put the railroad back in. They want those stormwater things moved. There is a link on the Village of Beulah's website for online campground reservations, and there is a 2-night minimum. I had 2 building and ground committee meetings, which we've already reviewed. Benzonia Township reported that the court date for the lawsuit filed against Sunkist for non-compliance with restriction was postponed until August. It was also reported that a stop work order was issued to Sunkist for 2 accessory buildings that were started before primary buildings were built. The village or the township of Benzonia has formed a website committee and they are making progress, and that should be up and running soon. And then the Crystal Lake watershed overlay will be discussed at next month's meeting at the township. This is in conjunction with, this is the West Benzie Joint Planning Committee. This document has been under review for many, many months with the Benzonia Township attorneys and will be addressed in August. I had a policy ad hoc committee meeting with Katie, Commissioner Worsecki. It was noted that we have 25 operational policies. There are 22 personnel policies with several more being created. And our discussion was that there would be a recommendation that there be no committee participation, simply establish the best practice of board review on a rotational basis. And then the other thing we noted and came up with as far as a recommendation was not to begin this review until the beginning of 2025, as our commissioner makeup could change. I attended the land bank meeting. There was an inventory review. 7440 River Street is the home that's being negotiated with Homestretch. They own the land bank owns the house. Homestretch will be considering an offer to purchase that land from the land bank at their August meeting. Their July meeting was canceled. It was discussed that the blight grant reimbursements for round 1 and 2 required much more work than the 8% administration allocation could cover. Susan Wenslick has been contracted through, I think, many of our committees to do certain sorts of consultation work. And she provided quite a bit of that work for free because the reimbursement didn't cover it. She said that she was glad we didn't get 3rd and 4th round funding because there were even more tedious administration requirements. MLT Services LLC, who is our previous treasurer, Michelle Thompson, reduced her services bill for last month as the inventory did not support the agreed upon payment. And there was talk at the meeting about amending that contract and the amount to be paid for her services. I attended the Central Wellness meeting. They identified a need for master's level social workers, which is just very difficult to find right now. So the state has approved bachelor level social workers for N31 grant funded positions with a condition that they are enrolled in a master's program while they're working. Budgeting and insurance premiums will be a future topic. Their staff has requested a longevity payments to be considered during the budgeting process. Currently, Central Wellness does a 90-10 split on their insurance premiums, and that a 12% adjustment is going to be talked about. And other than that, just the Board of Commissioners special meeting, which you all attended. We had 2 topics to discuss, and that's all I have.
I have a question, Commissioner and I thought, is it that they have to be enrolled in a master's program or serve under someone who has a master's?
My understanding is that they have to be enrolled in a master's program.
All right, I misunderstood
That
that.
extended education is subsidized by Central Wellness as well.
Okay.
So that's not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
You Tennessee, Barry.
Yeah. I had a conflict. There was another meeting.
Evan?
Let's see, I had the policy ad hoc meeting, which Rhonda covered. I did AP review and agenda review, which were apparently great because you guys already approved all of that. So thank you.
Wait a minute.
Oh, you already did, Gary. You already approved it. I had Colfax Township meeting. That was business as usual, but a good note is for anybody that travels down 669, they're going to be putting up a new cell tower at 669 and Mill Nickel. So you might actually get some cell phone service now in that area. The special Board of Commissioner meeting, which we were all at, and I'll echo what Art said. Katie, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Veterans Affair interviews, which we already took care of that. And then we have the gym committee meeting as well. And in that we discussed needs of the new gym, you know, and also the equipment that we have now, things that we might need or things to be replaced. So that's it.
Questions?
Yeah, Evan, on that subject of the gym, first, do you know, is that getting much use?
Yeah, from what I hear, it is, yes.
And when you talk about new equipment, is that equipment then that the county would end up having to invest in?
Yes.
Okay. And is that as a result of the move, or would we had to have invested in new equipment anyway?
I think from what I saw down there and from what the meeting was, the equipment that we had is, and seeing it, it's old and no longer serviceable. So in order to improve what we have for the employees, it's gonna need to be a lot of it replaced.
So some historical background on that is a lot of the equipment was obtained through various folks within the sheriff's office through by means of trades and bartering and happened to find stuff for low costs, and the union helped pay for a lot of that. There is some equipment that the county purchased along the way as well. I was working with Jim Kazabaski, one of the union representatives, and we were working through determining what was obtained by the union and what was obtained by Benzie County. So we kind of have that rough list put together as to what. There is some equipment that's broken that just simply needs to be, you know, gotten rid of. And then there's quite a bit of equipment that is, like Evan said, very archaic. And we've had gym professionals in there who own gyms that are saying, these are no longer serviceable. You can't get parts for these. Once it dies, it dies. And so as the gym committee, we're really working through that and determining how we're moving forward with our staff gym. It was, you know, once really driven by the sheriff's office deputies union to provide that gym. We've taken that step to saying we're providing this benefit to staff. So we are changing direction in a little way, that the county is going to be funding that stuff more so than anybody else.
It'll probably come up during our budgeting conversation this afternoon,
Correct.
but I think we should toss around the idea of a percentage of the marijuana money being directed to Jim annually.
Yep.
Depending on what number we can come up with. It's money that we don't count on.
Yep.
And it would be a good use of it.
Yep, and you'll notice in the general fund, and we'll go through it this afternoon, but Kelly and I actually created gym equipment and gym maintenance lines within the buildings and grounds department in the general fund. So they're right there in the general fund, and we'll go through that this afternoon, or I guess in a little bit.
Yeah, and the first year, it's a little bit more because of the equipment we get. Well, once we have the good, proper equipment.
Yep.
That fund won't need to be anywhere near as high.
Yeah, it won't be much. after
Yeah,
that.
it'll just be big the first year because there's a lot we need, but
Yeah, for instance, there's no working treadmills down there. and
yeah, there's no
Pres-
cardio equipment.
There's no cardio at this point. Everything is died, and that really is what attracts most people. Is that cardio equipment. And so, yeah, like Evan said, this big first year will be a little bit bigger of a request. Once the equipment is really up to snuff, it's a matter of maintenance and putting things on a replacement plan. And so the request would be a lot smaller into the future.
So some insurance companies, health insurance companies will reward you for trying to keep your staff healthy.
Correct.
I suspect that there may be other groups because we're talking primarily law enforcement, not primarily, but a big chunk of it. Are we looking for outside funding to augment what we're doing?
Yes, we've applied for a gym equipment grant that I believe we're still waiting to hear from. And yes, we're always looking for outside incentives or cost sharing and those sorts of things. Yes, Jackie's spoke with our benefits agents. I know that the folks up in the sheriff's office, there's quite a few of them are heavy gym users. And so they're always looking for opportunity to save and those sorts of things. So yes, that's ongoing.
Okay.
Ready out? Gary?
Good one, Adam. The township supervisor from Weldon was here, but she left. Carrie Aldridge, I was hoping she'd hang around a little bit. They have approved the project. And they did a really excellent job of weighing things out and discussing it. It was standing room only for the public hearing. But as far as I recall, there was only 2 or 3 people that got up and spoke from the public. I also think you're gonna see John come in here again and maybe ask for, which we don't have, a little help, but depending on the attorney's stuff, and then they agreed to a 4% pilt for the 30 years. So I think it's moving. Crystal Lake was Crystal Mountain was very happy with the results, so I believe it's really good for the community, but that's their call. Platte River School is down, everybody sees it. And I guess they're gonna move all the concrete to be crushed over by the pits because of the dust issue. But it looks like they've also pretty much got back to normal staffing. I think that issue is behind us. I did go to the Seabury thing and I didn't stay for the entire program. They started feeding, I had to go, but it was interesting. I thought it was pretty well attended. I always have concerns about nonprofits asking for governmental funding. And I don't, this group does the funding. It was interesting to me. I didn't make it last year. I think it was well worth going to. We had I guess I called it the initiative that Katie set up between the Betsy Valley Management Council, the DNR, and the Friend. And I think we got a little more clarity on how things are supposed to proceed. And I know the Friends have a lot of desires and they want to get all kinds of grants. But Katie explained it exceptionally well, the cost to the county and possibly funding stuff up front. There's a lot of things that don't get weighed in. They look at these grants, and I think they need to come to the Management Council, DNR, and I think there was a lot of things that really came out that was good, so. See what else kind of stuff I got here. Village of Alberta. They have signed what they call their last 5-year deficit reduction, so they will be cleared up at the end of the 5 years. I was not there for the meeting. That was the meeting. I was in Alaska when the Conservancy approached them. But yesterday's Parks and Rec meeting, the Conservancy did Zoom thing and answered a few questions. I asked them to please come to the Betsy Valley Management Council and at least present what you did, and let's have that discussion. I've got some concerns, but they were trying to make it sound like, well, we're gonna be able to put the trail in. All the trails going in, all we had to do was find out where it was going. As far as financially, I think the DNR has pretty much covered the cost. A couple things we need to talk about. I'm concerned about the lost revenue. And I will be pointing that out at that meeting. We're first Tuesday of next month, 6th or something. Having that discussion, but it's a long ways from being there. I think they need 19, just shy of $20 million to buy the property. Art asked me how long or how much property was there, and I think it was 35 acres total. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So, and that's counting the stretch that goes along the bay where the oil stuff, I don't know, where they used to hold things in there. And then they wanted an additional 5 or 6 million, just if there was some requirements to get things done. I don't know if it's a brownfield site in parts of it. I would love to see the road follow the trail and go to Alberta's park down there versus the by-street cliff. Eliminate that, but I don't know if that discussion's gonna get there, I'm sure. And should I ask this group to come present to us too? They be willing? I don't know. Is it something that the board would like to hear?
What was the amount your document said the county was gonna lose in revenue?
50,000 a year.
Actually, north of 50,000,
Yeah, north
right?
of 50's current. And then as, you know,
Yeah, as it continues to
Correct.
grow, yeah. And that's just for undeveloped property. Be huge if they developed it. Even though the village has been kind of a roadblock as to developments, but it depends on what the developments are, but. Oh, anyway, that's not all I got.
Units in that Weldon development? Weldon Township?
We're gonna start with 3, but,
I think it's 32 or 33.
yeah,
Certain
33 or
phases.
34, one or the
32 or
other, but yeah.
34, yeah,
But that's phased in.
Correct.
Right.
That's workforce housing. right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's the other part that I didn't know if I put down here or not. I didn't, I did. The development in Honor had twice as many people apply. I know you guys were concerned about that. And the one in Frankfurt, they had 3 times as many people apply as they had places, so. It's very popular and they're not popular, but it just shows
In
there's
demand.
a
The
huge
is there,
demand, yeah.
Which we know.
The issue they're having in Frankfurt, I just met with John yesterday because he wanted to know if we had more ARPA dollars. The issue they're having in Frankfurt is missing middle housing, and that's, you know, the Mishta grant and, you know, and the trouble is while they did get an abundance of application, the majority was for low income housing. So they're having to sift through those applications to find the ones that qualify for that 80 to 120, because a lot of these applications were that 60 to 100. And so, you know, it's just a balancing act. I mean, we need both, and when and where do we need both? And so that was an interesting, I thought that John said, is a lot of those applicants actually were low income. And so unfortunately, they don't meet the qualifications of that unit because of the grant. So it's interesting.
It still shows the demand.
need,
and
absolutely.
Extreme need for the community.
Just some comments on that if I could. Like at Gateway Village, we have a 2-year waiting list.
Oh, wow.
And our waiting list, when we built that, that was for 60% of area median income, so it's all low income.
Mhm.
No surprise, you know, that's what the applications they're getting.
Yep.
Some of those rents are, you know, I think approaching 1,100 a month.
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that that's affordable, but it's, I'm glad they're doing the project.
Yep.
With respect to Weldon, there's a couple of things I think that this board should do. If we would agree to it. First is I think we should send a letter to Crystal Mountain, thanking them for making the donation of land. And because this is so far out of Weldon's box that they're used to working with, I think we need to send them a letter of also being forward thinking and making this project go forward. I know that, you know, these smaller communities, they're challenged with it. Half of the population will be split about what they want. I'll use the word courage, probably not the right word, but it does take some courage to move these things forward. The key is what does that project look like 10, 20, 30 years from now? So just as a thought, if we want to send some kind of acknowledgement from this board, I know it's not a county thing, but it is. It affects the entire county.
Well, and to add to Crystal Mountain, the reason that they're able to qualify and apply for some of this grant funding is because Crystal Mountain is allowing them to hook up to their their group water sewer system there. So that makes them then qualify for additional funding because they're hooked up to an organized system versus, you know, well, septic and that. So Crystal Mountain went above and beyond in the sense of not only property, but allowing them to hook into their system.
Now, I know they'll gain some benefit from that.
Yeah.
But it's still a community project.
Absolutely.
The fact that Weldon Township granted a 4% pilot, because that could have been 8% or 10%, I've seen it across the board, will improve their scoring. for money from Mishta. And the only reason why Homestretch isn't doing it in phases has a lot to do with funding. Also has a lot to do with manpower that they don't have. And I'd like to keep them working in this community because there's a lot, I sit on 3 different housing boards in the region, and there's a lot of demand for Homestretch now to go in and do housing at everybody's community. John's been pretty generous, keeping as much of it he has here.
Yeah.
But just something to consider
Well, I
acknowledging.
wish Kerry would have stayed. Cause they did have one dissenting vote on the board.
With respect to the Conservancy, I don't know what impact we can have, but what percentage of our land is already in public or land or Conservancy? 40 or up to 30 to 60%?
It's a big number. I'd have to get with Kelly and Brienne to figure out the exact percentage, but it's a big number.
I mean, at some point in time, there's got to be some guide rails here.
Right, what's
Up-
the balance? That's
Yeah,
my concern.
because I've seen some communities that are over 50% and they're just stuck. So I don't know what influence the county can have, Gary, and I realize that, the property owner has a right to sell their property. But at what cost? If it's $50,000 a year, you apply a multiple to that, you do that over 10 years, that's $600,000 of lost revenue to the community that we need to provide services. Somewhere we got to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason, I guess, that we're asking for increases. Don't know how to, I thought this was done at the state level that allowed the conservancies not to pay property tax. Don't know. That's where we need to be going.
All I know is that, it'd be worth investigating to see if a community can set limits for themselves. Otherwise, it's 35 acres, that $50,000, that's about approaching 1% of our revenues, believe it or not, for the general fund. 50, or, that becomes a bigger number. And the last question I have for you is, at that Seabury presentation, I was there last year. Did you get a sense that there might be any monies that the county is missing because we don't have somebody dedicated to grant writing?
I know you guys are working on that, but yeah, I think they're probably an opportunity. And I know you guys are looking at it. But from what I understand, a grant writer probably could pay for itself by the grants, they can help pay for the grant. And I'm not gonna go any further, but I would like to see it in-house, to be honest.
Well, and I don't even want to get into that conversation other than to say that you're right. Grant writers in some cases can write their fee into the grant. But I think, and I don't know if you're going to speak to this or not, but I think Katie may have been a little taken aback when we got into that meeting and we literally were saying, oh no, you got to start from square one over here. Probably a little bit frustrating for you, but there's so many questions that have to be answered about what's the right approach for this community. And we need to put the right resources at the table. As I shared with the group that day, in my opinion, the people sitting there were the wrong people. Katie's got to surround herself with folks that actually know the subject matter. But Seabury has been very generous, and I just always sense that we're missing some opportunities there as a community because they seem to want to do business here.
They were real receptive to me showing up. That should be something.
Well, I appreciate you going, by the way.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Karen, did you go to that too?
All right, Katie, you have anything you want to share?
Just short, just a couple things. So I'll touch on the grant administration ad hoc. So we talked about, what if, then how, why. As far as grant administration, we talked about the fact that Benzie County really is heavily reliant on grants across the whole board for various things that we do here in Benzie County. So I'm in the process of reaching out to Lisa Sagala and Manistee because they've hired a grant coordinator now, is my understanding, for Manistee. So to kind of talk to her about what they've done and best practices and what that looks like for the county. And then I'm hoping to reach out to various entities around the county, mostly townships and villages, and talk to them about the grants that they have on the table. And if they see any sort of way to work with the county or for the county to support them in this endeavor. So really it's gonna boil down to is I'm gonna come to you in the future for support to put together some sort of work group or task force to get into the weeds on this, to come up with a great strategy either for Benzie County specifically or Benzie County and all the municipalities within Benzie County. I don't know what's the right way yet. I just, we don't. And so there'll be more to come on that. Obviously, that takes time. So I don't have a timeline on those things, but it does take time. So that's what we're gonna do, going forward. The policy ad hoc will start bringing policies forward the first of next year, and we'll get into that process and that routine of reviewing operational and personnel policies at the board level, most likely in study sessions. If there's no recommendation for changes, it may not go to the study session first. It might come right to a board for just the stamp of okay. So other than that, that's it. I lost my phone. That's why Rose came in here with my phone and everybody left. So sorry, airhead. I don't have anything unless you have questions for me.
Alrighty. Anybody have any correspondence? Our last public input, if anybody'd like to share anything, sir?
Thank you. I'm David Spraggins, as Brooke Pop pointed out. I'm one of the Crystal Lake Township appointees to the Airport Authority. And I appreciate the questions that Brooke got here. Commissioner Cunningham comes to all our meetings, so she's well informed, but some of the issues that you've brought up are the same issues that have come up at Crystal Lake Township in regard to, input to the Airport Authority. The township has an ad hoc committee with two very competent members, Jill Marvel, who's now the treasurer, and Judy Van Meter, the clerk, who knows more about the history of issues there than anybody, and then me. I'm just a space filler, I think, but Brooke is doing a good job, and there's a lot to clean up there, and she's jumped right in and doing it. And I just hope you'll give her the support, and I think it's a new day. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
David, how long have you been on that authority?
Since Brooke, I took Brooke's slot,
Okay, so less than a year.
pre-meeting.
Okay, all right.
And I went on, I'm not a pilot. I'm essentially a retired attorney, not licensed in Michigan, so I'm free. And, but in reading about the lawsuit, the settlement and everything, there's a reference to the airport should have had an airport overlay in the zoning, and they didn't. I mean, that never should have happened. So I've got some background in zoning, which unfortunately means I got appointed to the zoning commission too, just in time for Friends with Camp Nearby. And so I've jumped into two hot spots, but so I'm learning a lot. A good board. Corey knows what he's doing. Brooke's working hard. We get good support from Commissioner Cunningham. So I think you should feel positive about it.
Well, we value volunteers, so thank you very much.
Hey.
Or draftees, maybe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dave.
Any other public input?
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
before we adjourn? So Katie put these on our table, and these are
From NMC.
about the annexation proposition. And I just want to make one clarification because this is concerning me a little bit. When I see on this flyer that what does this mean if the two ballots are approved? Teaching classroom space, computer lab, technology resources, meeting spaces, office spaces. As a voter, the millage verbiage does not say that an approval would buy these features.
Correct.
Correct? It
Correct.
is just an approval to give Northwest Michigan the money, the annexation, the money goes there.
Correct.
And I'm not sure if misleading is going a little far, but I think as I look at it, I just want to I think there needs to be clarification that while these may be visions for Northwestern Michigan College, the vote does not approve these things being established. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, so the millage at face value doesn't necessarily approve these things. No. They have taken action as their board to adopt a resolution saying that part of the money would go towards these things. So I think that's why this is being pictured in the way it is, because of this resolution that their board has adopted, setting the marching orders, you know, for what some of that money would go towards. I think that's why. So these were given to me. I distributed them to you because they asked me to. So here they are. That millage language has not come to us just yet because it's waiting on approval from the state superintendent. That's the process for community colleges, is the state superintendent's office approves it before it comes then to Tammy's office for certification to the ballot. As you know, you don't have a say in that. That's part of their rules as a community college. They do have the resolution indicating that part of the money would come back to Benzie County. However, the millage language at face value doesn't say that. The millage language at face value is this levy in perpetuity for this purpose. They're then adding on top of that as a board saying, we would do this with part of this money.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But that statement's discretionary.
Yeah, it's
It doesn't
adopted.
bind them to anything.
Yeah, it's a resolution that they adopted as a board, you know, as a board of commissioners. You know, resolutions are your wish as the body, but the next body could rescind that resolution and change that. You know that as a board of commissioners. So, for what it's worth.
Is there any other public input? I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Jumped ahead of you there.
So we'll be back here in about a half hour.
Yes,
Okay.
11:30. We are adjourned.
11:30. Perfect.